We are live. We are live. I don't know. We're still having technical difficulties. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not able. I can see your chats on my phone. I cannot see your chats on my monitor. So I just don't know why that is. It does not make any sense at all. And now I'm getting absolutely I'm going to have to try something here, guys. Hold on. Hold on. Still having technical difficulties. I don't know. Can you guys even hear me? Still not working. Okay, hold on. Hold on, everybody. We're going to try to fix this here. We've done some... Okay. Holy smokes. We got something. We've got something. We've got something. It looks like it's working. Okay, we're good. Okay, I apologize. We're struggling here at Peek Around the Corner. I think we're going to be okay. We are live. Welcome to college footballs. Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to donate to this channel that does not know what it's doing, please hit the $sign, put a super chat in, and we'll get to your comment as soon as possible. Welcome into the studio. That does not work. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend. In the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. Holy smokes. We've been doing some differences here. They're not going to be noticeable to you all, but it has caused a lot of issues here in the studio. So we've been out of business the last couple days. So I'm glad you all came in for this Saturday afternoon. College football. We're going to be talking about, well, the screen title, next 6 months. The title of the show, the next 6 months in college football, is going to be fascinating to watch unfold. We took those words right out of the Oklahoma athletic director's mouth. And it is. We don't know. We're going to do the best we can, like we've always been doing for 17 months, to give you the most accurate peek around the corner there is. But holy smokes. Behind the scenes, behind the curtain, the chatter we are receiving here at Peek Around the Corner is, this thing could go in so many different directions. There's a lot of money at stake, a lot of exposure at stake. There's a lot of institutional control at stake. There's a lot of stakeholders who are putting their chips in the middle of the table. And I'm not talking just about realignment. I'm talking about everything. Everything in college football. That's our discussion today. I want to thank everybody who's come on in. Skull Ducky, appreciate it. Early Peak member. Ryan Brooks, Empire Marketing. The Big, love it. Kirk Bender, Ted Evans, Mr. Husky, Sheep and Wolf's Clothing. Jay Brew's in the house. J-Rod is in the house. Red Raider, Laurel Rice is in the house. Calderon, Hagen, holy smokes. Randy Taylor, Early Peak Expedition, Greg, David Hackett. I apologize. Jamie Thornton's in the house. Some sort of breakaways in order. I apologize for the start of the show. I think now we're going to be good. I think we're going to be good. Not just for today, but in the days ahead. I think we've worked out some kinks. You can see here our logo, our new logo. You see that, everybody? It's not our new logo. It's our first and only logo. We've, after 17 months, it took us only 17 months for us to come up with the logo. There's a couple reasons why it took us 17 months. Number one, your host is incompetent, as you noticed at the start of the show. That's a big reason. The other big reason why it took us 17 months is I had no idea what our logo, I had no idea what I wanted. So I did not want to pick a logo. I had no idea what I wanted. It's like when me and the little general go into a store, going shopping. I have no idea what I want. It's like my wife says, I don't have bad taste. I don't have good taste. I have no taste at all. I have absolutely no idea what I want. Is the stream still okay? Can you guys still see me? Are we okay? Because now we're getting a warning. Now we are getting a warning. So give me a thumbs up if we're still okay. Okay, I guess we're still good. We'll keep going on. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I needed to get a feel of what I wanted. Eventually, we came up. I wanted something bright. I didn't want dark colors. I wanted to keep our purple bluish coloring, the red coloring, of course, the black. Black, red, and purplish color is our three colors for our logo. I wanted to keep it clean. I wanted to keep it not busy. And I also wanted... It doesn't sound like your microphone is on. It is on. It is on. Hopefully that's okay. The action marks in the logo where it looks like I'm moving around and I'm excited, I think that needed to be included. Anyways, that's the logo. We're sticking with it. Our first logo, our only logo. If you go to our, there's a link in the description. This is something I never advertise. And the little general gets upset with me because I do not advertise it. But we do have a merchandise store. There's a link provided in the description below the video. There's a link. You can go in there. This logo will be added to our merchandise and new merchandise as we go into the second season. Okay? Anyways, enough about the logo. Let's get into it. We've got a lot of stuff to get through. This is interesting. John Wilner predictions for 2024. Again, we provide a link in the description. You can read the whole article. Hotline predictions for college sports in 2024, Big 10, Big 12 races, the ACC's future, NCAA legal issues, and more. The industry is changing at a mind-boggling rate, and that won't change in 2024. I feel like we're all just riding. I feel like I'm riding this wild tiger. I'm sitting on a wild tiger. Not a wild horse, a wild tiger. We're just hanging on, ladies and gentlemen. This is college football's peek around the corner. We try to give you the most accurate peek around the corner. I think we've done a great job in our first 17 months with big stories. But I've got to be honest with you. I don't know where this is all going to end up. We're gonna try each and every single day. We're gonna try to give you the best peek around the corner. We have said over and over again at Peek Around the Corner, our very first episode of this channel, episode number 1, August 10th, 2022, our manifesto. We believe there would be some CBA, some collective bargaining agreement. We believe the student athletes would have to be under contract. It looks like it's going that way after 17 months here at Peek Around the Corner, but I don't know. I don't know, guys. Let's get into John Wilner's predictions here. The Hotline's predictions cover a broad array of topics on the field off that will impact college football, basketball, 2024 and beyond. There's one of these predictions in here from John Wilner I do not agree with, and I want to give you my reasons why. Some of you might say, well, Greg, you're biased. You're biased. You're a golden gopher. I don't know. One of these predictions, and I understand my personal bias, but I truly do not believe a prediction that John Wilner makes, and we'll get to it in a moment here. The industry is changing at an accelerating rate. With the evolution comes an enhanced level of interconnected issues on multiple levels: lawsuits, realignment, NIL, coaching changes, cord cutting, and an increased pressure on the system. Put it another way, we will start experiencing college sports in dog time. The next year will feel like 5. Now, I do not go through the whole article, so you can do that. There's a link provided. The expanded college football playoff will exceed the hype. This I agree with. I believe the college football playoffs I think it's going to be, now, hopefully, if it's not, I will admit that I'm wrong, but I think this is going to be an absolute incredible success. Not only when we get to the playoffs, but during the season. I think it's going to enhance everything. I think it's going to enhance everything. John Wilner's article, we believe college football playoff expansion is the biggest development in college sports since the 1984 Supreme Court ruling that gave conferences control of their media rights. The first piece of media rights deal with ESPN sometime this spring will carry an annual value of $1.75 billion. This is John Wilner's prediction. This is not his reporting. This is his prediction. Far above the $1.3 billion. Now, we've heard the same thing at Peek Around the Corner. The day after it was reported by Sports Media Watch, $1.3 billion, we said, don't look at that number. That's an incorrect number. I agree with John Wilner on this. Back to the article. And once the season begins, the expanded event would dominate the narrative on a weekly basis, boosting TV viewership and enhancing the number of relevant games and teams. Fans will be left wondering why the original college football playoff in 2014 didn't have 12 teams. I agree. And I've been saying that over and over and over again. The next prediction from John Wilner for 2024. The NCAA's radical plan will stall. In December, NCAA's President Charlie Baker proposed a subdivision that would require schools to invest at least $30,000 per player per year. We've talked about it. No idea that radical will ever receive enough support to pass, at least not in its original form, not without congressional support. That support won't come. The schools would disagree on the details, and the Big Ten and the SEC, which hold an outsized influence on the future of college football, will walk away deeply unsatisfied. Prediction. Here's another prediction. The ACC will hold for now. John Wilner, the Mercury News predictions for 2024. The ACC will hold for now. Any school wishing to leave the ACC faces a mid-August deadline to announce its departure in the following year. We expect that deadline to pass without incident. Florida State isn't going anywhere in 2025, nor is anyone else. That said, it will become increasingly clear over the next 11 months that the Seminoles are not long for their current home. The 2026 season feels like the right time for an official divorce, as it coincides with the start of a new media contract cycle for the college football playoff, and when the Seminoles leave, they won't be alone. There's a lot of things I agree with here. I'm not willing to give up my prediction on this yet. In when Florida State leaves, I want to know the results of those. I need more information, right? We need more information. We don't know. Let's just see what happens in Mecklenburg County, Leon County, where this thing could land. We'll see if Clemson remains quiet here for the next couple weeks. The first week has passed in our action window for Clemson, and not a word. It's all crickets at Clemson. We believe they got 2 more weeks to take action. If they don't, they're just not going to. And we can get more into that later in the show. We've talked about our reasons why there is a certain window for Clemson to act. But, you know, it makes a lot of sense, this prediction, right? Florida State, according to John Wilner, his prediction, they're going to leave at some time, and it's more likely the 2026 season is where they'll be, wherever the next home will be. It's probably going to take longer to get through past the August 15th of 2024, where Florida State would have to have the notice of withdrawal to get into a conference by 2025. That's the chalk. 2026, 2027 is the chalk. I'm not willing to eliminate the possibility of 2025 yet. I want more information. And they won't be alone. I don't think they'll be alone. I don't think this is a one-school move. The Big Ten stays at 19 or the SEC stays at 17. Nothing else happens. I don't believe that at all. So, I think this is a pretty good take overall by John Wilner at this point. Another prediction that John Wilner made. Gonzaga will not join the Big 12. Gonzaga will not join the Big 12. Commissioner Brett Yormark sees untapped value in college basketball and has targeted Gonzaga as a potential addition for the best hoops league in the country. Yormark may very well be right about the sport's valuation over the long haul, but the Zags simply don't bring enough new revenue for the existing schools. In fact, the slight but noticeable on-court regression in Spokane has come at just the wrong time. Gonzaga had a narrow path to membership under the best of circumstances, but as an unranked team on the NCAA bubble, it's an even tougher sell to the Big 12 presidents and the media partners. The Pac-2 will struggle. Another prediction by John Wilner. Washington State and Oregon State have made all the right moves since being cast adrift as a two-team conference. And we expect them to sign a media rights deal for their home football game that provides as much exposure as they could reasonably expect. In that regard, visibility is more important than cash, but traction will prove difficult next fall. Neither roster is good enough to contend for an at-large berth in the expanded college football playoff, where the sport's attention shifts most entirely to the enlarged Big Ten and SEC. And I agree with that as well. They're going to struggle. They're going to struggle. Yeah, I agree with that. Number 8. Now, we're not going through all of the predictions. So if you want to read the whole article again, there's a link provided in the description below the video. I'm just not going to go through all of them. Market pressure will increase. We expect both cord cutting and the shift to streaming to continue in 2024. Look for ESPN to finalize details of its direct-to-consumer offering as the demand for live sports and news increases. The end result, a framework for the new world order in which a more efficient media marketplace sparks dramatic change at the highest levels of college football. The days of splitting media rights revenue equally within conferences are over. Never again will Indiana and Mississippi State, to name two, receive the same paychecks as Michigan and Georgia, respectively. This is a prediction that I disagree with. If there is a future where the SEC has a clear revenue advantage over the Big Ten, or if the Big Ten in the years ahead has a clear revenue advantage over the SECs, then maybe, just maybe, a Mississippi State won't get as much media revenue as a Georgia. Maybe, but I doubt it. The reason why the ACC is going to unequal revenue sharing is because the big-time football brands of that school are $35 million a year behind in media revenue, and it's only going to grow. It's only going to grow. At the same time, student-athletes' compensations are going to rise because of direct payments to the student-athletes from the conferences and or school. This is not the same situation. Ohio State made $279 million in athletic department revenue. Indiana, I don't know what their number is going to be. It could be 150, 160, 170, 180. Rutgers, Minnesota, Illinois, Northwestern, Maryland. What good does it do for the Buckeyes to grab another $5 million, $10 million in Big Ten media revenue? It doesn't. I don't believe Alabama's going to take $10 million more from Missouri, from Mississippi, from Mississippi State, from Vanderbilt. It's not the same pressure. It's not the same environment. Wilner keeps talking about this. I would be absolutely shocked. I would take the big L. I would definitely take the big L. There are many other ways for Georgia to make more money than Mississippi. There are many other ways that Michigan makes more money than Indiana and 95% of the teams in the Big Ten. They will continue to make more revenue, as they should. The Dallas Cowboys make way more revenue than the Jacksonville Jaguars. They share the same media money. The Dallas Cowboys make the same exact amount of money as the Jacksonville Jaguars out of the NFL's deal with Amazon, with Fox, with NBC, therefore. But Dallas has other ways to make way more money. Same thing with Ohio State. Same thing with Michigan. What we're seeing with ACC is because they're way behind the Big Ten and the SEC. That's why we're seeing that talk. We're not even seeing the talk out of the Big 12. It makes the conference weaker. Why does Ohio State? It isn't going to help Ohio State to take $10 million more from these other schools. It's just, so this is one of the predictions I disagree with. The rest of it sounds good to me. This is the last prediction that we're covering from the John Wilner article. Oregon will thrive in the Big Ten. Alone among their West Coast peers, the Ducks will enter the Big Ten in position to compete with Ohio State for the conference title. And a berth to the college football playoffs. The Buckeyes will be absolutely loaded. What about the other new members? Washington, revamped roster, USC's defense, probably not going to work for 2024. Let's hope for the Trojans, for their fans, that improves. They're going to get the talent, great program. Obviously, USC could be right there in 2025. 2024, I'm going to have to see it to believe it. UCLA, they're not going to be competing at the highest level, not right away, anyways. So Oregon, they have the needed ingredients on the field: the quarterback, playmakers, talent on the lines, and coaching stability, NIL support to navigate the transition smoothly. The others do not, in one regard or the other. So I agree with John Wilner's predictions for the most part. I agree with that for the most part. But the unequal revenue sharing when it comes to the media money in the Big Ten of the SEC, not unless one conference falls way behind the other. And I don't see that happening as well. I don't see... Tell me if I'm being naive in the chat or with the phone calls later in the show. Tell me that I'm being naive, but I don't see it happening. Okay. Let's get to... I'm looking for some comments. Wilner's been right. He was not right on... as you all know, I tried to warn him on the USC to the Big Ten. I forwarded him information that he completely ignored. Most people did. The only people that took my information and said, wow, was USC 247. Ryan Abraham, USC's 247, and Minnesota 247. The great Ryan Burns. They knew what was going on. USC 247 was starting to have podcasts on USC calling the Big Ten in the spring and early summer of 2022 because of the information we were providing. John Wilner, Kazano, and other people on the West Coast, I'm not going to name their names. They were given the information. They did not believe it. It did not fit their world view. It did not fit a lot of people's worldview. But Wilner's gotten some stuff right. AMAC, Greg, it's called greed. The big brands want every single dollar they can get. If that means unequal revenue sharing, they'll do it. Several big brands left their conferences because of it. True. Different situation, though. Now, Could there be a Super League forming 6 years from now? Where part of the Big Ten, the top brands and the top SEC schools form? Maybe, possibly, 6 years from now, 10 years from now. I think that will be the action. I think that's that's a long shot, but it could happen. I just don't see the Big Ten internally. I don't see the wealthiest conference in the country having that same dynamic unless the SEC jumps way ahead, or vice versa. If the Big Ten jumps way ahead. But there's so many ways for the Buckeyes to have so much more money anyways. It's a different thing. But we'll see what happens. Champions against the world. Holy smokes. We know Florida State likes the idea of unequal revenue sharing. Their greed is a red flag. I think if Florida State joined the Big Ten, I think they would be just fine with making the same amount of money as an Indiana, a Purdue, an Illinois, a Northwestern, a Minnesota. Therefore, I just don't see it happening. But anyways, I could be wrong. Okay, let's go to interesting article. We've got we've got all these things going on, right? We've got all these storylines. Just ridiculous storylines. So I'm trying to do something here. What the heck? Okay. I just put out 5 gift memberships. So John Dry, King Spleen, Jeremy Nork, Jimmy and Steve, you are hereby knighted. Cloak and Dagger knighted. Congratulations. You are now early peak members. You are hereby Cloak and Dagger knighted. What does that mean? You get early peak membership. Now, we were going to drop an episode a couple days ago talking about Sherrone Moore becoming the new Michigan head coach, but we had those technical difficulties the last couple days. We've cleaned them up. Anyways, for the early peak Cloak and Dagger members, you're going to be seeing more and more episodes starting to drop. For the new members, go to our YouTube membership. Go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you get yourself notified. These will be dropping in your notifications. You'll be able to watch early peak Cloak and Dagger episodes. So for those who are not early peak Cloak and Dagger members, just go to our channel, hit the join button. There's a link provided in the description box. You can go and hit that link and hit the join button. And Mr. Ted Evans, very generous Mr. Husky, peek around the corner member, very valuable member to our channel, Mr. Ted Evans. Holy smokes. Gifted 5 memberships once again to our members. Man, oh man. Mr. Ted Evans, you are hereby knighted once again. Cloak and Dagger knighted. Thank you, my dear friend. Mr. Husky, wow. Purdy Knoll Girl, Clay Johnson. I'm sorry, Clay Johansson. Excuse me. Brandon, Unra, Nunn, Bob Husley. You are all Cloak and Dagger knighted. Once, thank you so very much for being in the chat. You can collect these memberships. Thank you so very much. Ted Evans, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Coy, once again, gets another membership. Another Cloak and Dagger membership. Coy's incredible, generous member to this community. Wow. John Grove was gifted a membership by Coy. Both of you. Coy, you are knighted once again. Cloak and Dagger knighted. And I've got to get John Grove. John Grove, you are hereby Cloak and Dagger knighted. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for all of your incredible generosity. It looks like you're eating a cheeseburger. That's a football down there, Bob Husley. That's a football. What are you talking about, a cheeseburger? It's got the, well, you know what? A cheeseburger would work as well. Let's be honest. A cheeseburger would work as well. That fits the brand of the show. That not the cheese though. The burger, but not the cheese. I've got into this. I don't think anybody wants to hear me do my rant about the cheesification of America. Brought to you by the evil Wisconsin dairy, Big Dairy, where they put cheese everywhere. Pretty soon, 10 years from now, when I'm long and gone, when I'm buried in the ground, when I'm 6 feet in the ground, you all in the chat room are going to be cheesified to where you're going to buy a nice juicy steak at a beautiful steakhouse, and they're going to plop a whole bunch of cheese on top of that steak. They're going to put a blob of cheese right on your beautiful fillet of fish that the restaurant got from the Lake of the Woods in the beautiful northern Minnesota. Cheese is everywhere. Take the cheese off the hamburger. Do it. Anyways, Pete. You guys are killing me. Okay, no, that is a football that I'm holding in the logo. Okay, let's get to it. Thank you for the generosity, Ted Evans, Coy, everybody. Oh, you know what? And I forgot. There was a. I'm sorry. Excuse me, Jeremy Nork. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so very much for your generosity once again to this channel. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Okay, let's get to it. I'm way behind. I want to get to your phone calls. It's been a little bit of a... we've had some technical difficulties. We had them at the start of the show. I think we're going to be okay because we got a busy week up ahead. So it's been a strange afternoon show, to say the least. College sports faces more change. Is private equity money coming in? Man, oh man. Ryan Willie, the evil badger, cheeseburgers are the best. Of course he thinks cheeseburgers are the best. Anyways, I don't want to get off topic here. I've already went off the beaten path. Pete Thamel, there are high-stakes lawsuits and labor relations boards, congressional hearings, an NCAA president's controversial overhaul plan. There's an angry school taking its conference to court over the grant of rights. And that conference preemptively striking against the school. We've got enough drama. We've got enough drama. We don't need private equity coming in. We've got enough on our plates. Don't we have enough on our plates? There's a disruption of name, image, and likeness, grumbling over essentially unlimited transfers, $1 million portal acquisitions. There are Hall of Fame coaches in football and men's basketball sprinting to retirement. There's a yawning gap between the SEC and the Big Ten and the rest of the leagues, with those Power 2 commissioners beginning to realize the power of leveraging their ascension above the fray. We got all these stories, all these big stories. We're trying to do the best we can and peek around the corner to even keep track of these things. There are only two certainties in college sports. Sweep and change is a coming, and no one knows what it will look like. And I said at the start of the show, I said at the beginning of the show, I try to be as honest as we are. College football's peek around the corner. We've been very successful in giving you the accurate peek. Early peak, people didn't know what was coming. But I can honestly tell you, I do not know what's going to happen. And I hope people keep coming and watching our show, because you all know I'm going to be working hard, poking and prodding. I'm going to try to give you the best. I'm doing the best I can. The people that I talk to, their heads are spinning. Their heads are spinning. So, nobody knows what it's going to look like. So, buckle up. Amid this backdrop, a new market force has emerged. Another new market force has emerged as potentially interested in the future of college sports. From email inboxes to Zoom meetings, to glad handing at high-end events, representatives from private equity and other types of outside financial entities have emerged as interested in the chaos of college football. What are you looking for if you are a private equity asset industry source? You are looking you are looking for a poorly managed business that nevertheless has a strong market, and that's the definition of college athletics. No question about it. I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm either laughing or I'm crying, and I've done both on this show. I've cried during Gopher defeats. I've laughed at, well, I'm not going to say the people on Twitter. I've done both. I think I'm laughing so I don't cry. Here. You are looking for a poorly managed business that nevertheless has a strong market. That's college athletics. That's college football. There's also a search for solutions, which include a think tank. A think tank? Spearheaded by search firm executive Len Perna. Includes the names like billionaire David Blitzer, one of the country's most prolific investors in sports, former MLS president Mark Abbott, and a handful of university leaders, including Syracuse Chancellor Kent Severud. They stress that they have no direct tie. They stress they have no direct tie to any financial arm and are attempting to figure out a solution that includes more than 130 FBS football teams while keeping intact Olympic and women's sports. It's been obvious the whole college sports system has been a dead man walking for 3 years, driven by legal developments. What's going to come out of it is the thing that hasn't been clear. The current system can't continue. It's a dead man walking. Everything's being moved here. The biggest force that's moving everything is the legal stuff, right? The lawsuits that are coming down. The forces of Congress, legal decisions, a suddenly proactive NCAA, and $1 billion television contracts are colliding to shape some type of an ambiguous future. Meanwhile, the inefficiencies between the far-flung conferences, the cost of non-revenue sports, and athletic department funding models remain glaring. Uncertainty is nothing new in college athletics. $1 billion enterprise awkwardly tied to an educational model. We've seen this before. But to see just how tenuous things are, it's always instructive to follow the money. Private equity officials have found profitable avenues in everything from professional sports to the WWE. So private equity starting to circle around the college football world. It's a way of doing business that college athletics has never really engaged in, said a Power 5 athletic director familiar with the space. In the professional world, it's common practice for facilities, projects, payments. Think about FSU when you're thinking about this. Think about Florida State. We're going to get to that after we're done with the article. And then think about the possibilities for Clemson. We'll get to all that in a little bit. So what's happening? So what is happening? There's Jerry Cardinal, founder of the Redbird Capital, offering ideas on how to change college sports at the Sports Business Journal Intercollegiate Athletics Forum in December. He pointed out the power of the schools collectively negotiating television contracts as opposed to having leagues do it. And he's engaging with officials around college athletics. Former Florida State quarterback Drew Weatherford has been setting up and taking meetings with campus officials around the sport as he's a partner in Weatherford Capital. There's Ortwell Capital, co-founded by former Redbird partner, former NFL executive Alex Snyder, also expressing curiosity about the space. Another financial firm, we've heard this before in Florida State reports. Another financial firm, Sixth Street Partners, is expected to engage with Florida State if it needs a financial infusion in the wake of its attempt to detangle from the ACC grant of rights. There's 4 or 5 venture capital companies all circling, said another industry source. These big time places that will come in. It means that if these guys are circling, it means we're not maximizing our revenue. The most intriguing group exploring the future of college sports that's emerged in recent months is Perna's, whose works as the chairman and the CEO of the search firm Turnkey ZRG. Now we've heard of that. We've heard of that search firm. They've been involved with a lot of athletic departments, doing background checks, doing searches, doing the groundwork for new head coach searches, for new athletic director searches, for a president for a university. He acknowledges the complications for holistic solutions, as keeping some semblance of the college model is key. When it's mentioned this idea could include football breaking away from the NCAA, he counters that it already has, and we've talked about this. It already has broken away from the NCAA in many ways. The NCAA gets virtually no revenue from football, doesn't control its postseason. We're studying ways to unlock more value from and for the college football, for the betterment of all, Perna said. in a statement to ESPN. Again, this is Pete Thamel's article. Centralizing FBS football scheduling, promotion, and commercial rights would be better for football student athletes because it would enable them to collectively bargain, and be rewarded for the value without limiting their choices or needing to be employees. There's more than 100 universities with fine football teams and histories, and their Hunger Games is going to hurt a majority of them very seriously in whole states and regions, unless we come up with a decision that's fair to marquee programs and enables others to participate and improve. The group has engaged leaders around the sport in conversations over the past few months. And while there's no formal link to a specific financial firm, one of the members is Blitzer, who is an executive of Blackstone and is one of the country's best known investors in professional sports, including a role as managing partner in the Philadelphia 76ers, the New Jersey Devils, and owner of Real Salt Lake of the MLS, and a limited partner in MLB's Guardians and NFL Commanders. Blitzer's role is one of mostly of an intellectual curiosity at this point. All forms of investment capital, including private equity, can help grow an enterprise that's properly structured, Perna told ESPN. College sports isn't properly structured legally, politically, commercially, etc. Alone can't fix the core structural problems. PE alone can't fix the core structural problems, but can play a role once they're solved. The difference between our group and the other groups is that we're focusing first and foremost on how to correct the big, daunting, holistic structural issues in college sports. Perna has engaged the NCAA about this idea, but is not sanctioned or specifically supported. Perna also noted the geographic inefficiencies of the current conference construct. It would also be better for other student athletes in other sports because they need not be flying all over the United States due to conference affiliations driven by a one-game-a-week football, Perna's statement said. The current rubric isn't academically tenable, nor affordable, nor even logical. It's worth the time to explore what alternative models could work better for student athletes, schools, media partners, fans, etc. With the complications of college football, both sticking or detaching from current structure, the think tank plan is very much the thinking phase. There remain plenty of headwinds to any change, especially those that need congressional help. I want to get to the end part here. I don't look at private equity as perfect or evil. I think we have to look at all the different pieces of the problem. There's a significant financial piece to this. The search for answers is part of an overall environment where the issues are much easier to point out than the solutions. And here is the PATC money shot of the article. The next 6 months are going to be fascinating to watch unfold, said Oklahoma Athletic Director Joe Cassiani. This is what we named the article. This live stream. Next 6 months are going to be fascinating to watch unfold. Oklahoma Athletic Director states it, speaking generally about the state of college athletics. The next half of year, a path is going to start forming. Whether it gets support or is possible, plausible, or legal, we do not know. Candidly, something needs to start forming. There's so many things happening simultaneously. There's never been a time like this in college athletics ever. Syracuse Chancellor adds, let's come up with the best we can and see what happens. Otherwise, The dead man walking is going to produce something crazy. And that is why this is like herding a bunch of cats. This is like herding a bunch of wild cats. To get a solution, you've got to herd everybody. Get somebody on the same thought, same plane. And then, if you need Congress's help, you got to get them involved. And you know how difficult it is for them to carve out any solutions for you, especially during an election year. You got private equity coming in now, wanting to be part of the solution, if they can get part ownership, right? Florida State, they're looking at a private equity. They're definitely looking at private equity. They've definitely looked at private equity firms to help them out in their battle against the ACC. What they just did this last week on Wednesday was about satisfying a private equity firm. To say, Florida State basically said out loud to the private equity firm, we got ourselves a line of credit. We can fill in the holes for payments back to you, the private equity firm, if we need to do so in the next few years after you help us get out of the ACC during possible some lean times. We've just established a procedure. We've just established a line of credit internally at Florida State University. That's about a private equity. I can tell you right now, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Clemson is quiet right now in public. Behind the curtain, they haven't been quiet. They're trying to establish a partnership with a private equity firm. This is one of the reasons why people are so... This is why people are so sure that they've done all the work. They haven't pulled the trigger. They haven't pulled the trigger. But they've done all the work. So you've got all this stuff going on, and then you throw in private equity as they start to circle, because they see a strong market, a strong product that is incredibly inefficient at this time. I'm going to open up the phone lines. Phone lines are now open, 763-260-1333. You can talk about anything college football. I will say this. Couple more stories. Ross Dellinger, P5 commissioners, and Charlie Baker met in D.C. on Thursday as expected. Conversations are expected to continue as they explore a compensation model that, as examined in our below story, could serve as a settlement for the House and long-term solution for the sport's richest programs. Trying to get their arms around a compensation model for the student athletes that would help them with the House lawsuit, right?
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
Greg, I have to disagree with you.
Beautiful.
I think if you haven't had a dry-aged Kansas City cut ribeye with cast iron grilled with blue cheese crumbles, you have not lived, my friend.
You know what, Ryan, you would have hurt me less. You would have hurt me less if you would have taken a rusty doll spoon, and carved my heart out right now. You would have hurt me less. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You guys are crazy in the chat. Ryan is crazy. You all are nuts. All of your cheese have slipped off your crackers. Ryan, the floor is yours. I apologize for interrupting your pushback.
If you take the optional of having herb butter on top, I can forgive you. So
how about grilled onions? How about grilled mushrooms? There's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can do with the hamburger, with the steak.
Oh yeah.
With fish. Don't put cheese on it. Hey, let me ask you something, Ryan. Okay, Ryan. I'm going to have to interrupt you again.
I agree with you on the hamburgers, Greg. I agree with you on the hamburgers, though. I agree with you on.
Keep going ahead. I'm gonna put out a poll question. You keep going. Yep.
I mean, because unless it's real, unless it's Swiss, I don't like cheese on my hamburgers. Yeah. So Wilner's predictions are pretty contradictory. I just do not see any world where it's possible for the SEC and Big Ten to break away with the ACC still intact. And the reason why I say that is because the Big 12, ACC, and Big East drive about 50% of the NCAA men's basketball tournament revenue. Mm-hmm. Those three could easily break away and do their own thing, and that would essentially kneecap every single basketball program in the SEC and Big Ten.
Yeah.
The Big Ten and the SEC are not going to kill, another major revenue sport in their conference for an incremental increase of money, that's there. They're just not, it's not worth it to them. And also they understand for the parity of the sport, they need to have it there. Now, eventually Immaculate and I've had this discussion. In fact, I've said this billions of times before to you. Eventually, could football break off from the NCAA and do its own little thing and be separate of conferences? I think it's possible. I don't know. A lot can happen. But I mean, I just don't think that that's the case. And I think the ACC probably does fall apart. For people who think that just because North Carolina has effectively handcuffed NC State and UNC together doesn't mean that UNC isn't going anywhere. It just means that UNC and NC State are going to go somewhere together. And, I totally see, culturally, Virginia Tech would fit in well in the SEC, as would NC State. And what I've said to this millions of times to people that they need to understand is the SEC has a pro rata clause with ESPN for the addition of P5 teams. The SEC could bring in UNC, NC State, North Carolina, UVA, and Virginia Tech. And they could bring them in at 50% shares, Greg. And at 50% shares, they would be making the same money that they're making now in the ACC. And that other 50% of money would basically translate into $8.5 million additional revenue for each SEC school. Mm-hmm. The SEC is not saying no to that. Mm-hmm. And, as Immaculate has said and Moen has said, if they're going to have to go up in games for the conferences to make them happy, well, someone's got to replace Austin Peay. And, if that means it's UVA, then so great. So be it. And I think that that's sort of where we're heading right now. I have no clue what's going to happen beyond that, but I think there's going to be movement this year, and I think it's going to come really, 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 really fast. And the reason why it will is because the CFP for 2027 and beyond has got to basically have the terrain settled to some degree before that deal can be finalized. And I think that's where we're headed, Greg.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you're making a lot of great comments. There's by the way, congratulations to Gator, Hater, Two King Slots, Matt Higgins, Baylor, Bears, Patrick, and Christopher Headley becoming new members, Cloak and Dagger, early peak members. You guys, therefore, are officially knighted. Ryan, there definitely is a lot of forces at play, right? I mean, you got the court cases, but you also have, you got this great gold rush of 2026. We don't even know what it's going to look like. You have all these forces just pushing in, and it's. I know it's my job, but I'm failing at my job, right? And I can't get my arms around this. As we just read in the Pete Thamel article, at the very end, I'm going to put it up on the screen if you don't mind. At the very end of it,
Go ahead.
At the very end of it, it's like, let's come up with the best we can, see what happens. Otherwise, the dead man walking is going to produce something crazy. It's.
Well, Greg, maybe I should retire from my career and move up to Minnesota and open up the Peek Around the Corner restaurant and grill, where you could host your show every day. And Tony, if I did open a restaurant, Tony, even though it would not get ordered and nobody would eat it, I would still have it on the menu. I would offer people the option of ordering grilled badger.
Guys. Here, during your conversation with me, I put up a poll. Okay? Is grilled cheese sandwich better than grilled ham and cheese sandwich? Yes, 59%, 41% no. This is my point.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, now this is my point. I agree, everybody. Grilled cheese sandwich is better than a ham and cheese. I am not anti-cheese. I'm not anti-grilled cheese. I'm not anti-cheese on a cracker. I'm anti-cheese with meat. There's only about one or two exceptions to that. Maybe there's a couple. Swiss cheese with turkey possibly works, but basically cheese with meat does not work. You've all been cheesified. The great cheesification of America. The grilled cheese sandwich is definitely better than the grilled ham and cheese. White Castle hamburgers, right? They've been around for decades. They used to have just the sliders, just the hamburger with the onion. Now what they've done with it? They've slapped on those. You can get it with cheese. Try a White Castle slider, just the normal, the original, versus the White Castle with the cheese, and tell me which is better. Honestly. All right.
Yeah. I mean, but would you be okay if we served cheese on the grilled badger, Greg?
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that either way. I would not touch. I thank you for your call, Ryan. I appreciate you putting
Greg.
up with me.
I'll get off right now before Peter tracks me down.
Got it.
Anyway, take care. Great job on the show, Greg.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to end that poll. Grilled cheese sandwich is better than a ham and cheese grilled. No question about it. Keep the cheese away from the meat. A cheese pizza. A slice of cheese pizza.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie Thornton, thanks for calling. Can you just hold on 1 second?
Absolutely.
A slice of high-end cheese pizza with possibly some artichokes on that blows away anything you want to put on with sausage or pepperoni. Mixing cheese and meat. You've all been cheesified by the army of the state of Wisconsin. The great cheesification of America is one of the worst things that's happened in this country, and I'm fighting against it every single day. Mr. Arkansas, Mrs. Arkansas, Razorback, Jamie, you have the floor. Thanks for your patience.
Cheese is the best, Greg. Absolutely the best. There's nothing better than a New York-style big slice of pizza with cheese on it. We have a place down south that's very similar. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
No, I was just saying cheese is fine. Cheese is fine. It's not really anti-cheese. It's anti-putting cheese all over all these beautiful slices of meat that we enjoy in this country. I
see what you're saying.
Got it.
I see what you're saying.
Okay,
I got you.
All right.
Well, this is going to be crazy. I think crazier than what we all thought. And I know you mentioned it about what the new Washington AD had said about you haven't seen anything yet. There are so many things going on now, right, with conference realignment. And now we're talking about a very possible separation. I mean, this is actually being talked about. And the fact that it's so, I believe no doubt about it, that it's NIL driven. What rules are going to be set? What's the NCAA going to try to do? What's going to happen? But you can already see, I don't know if it might be, I know you talked about it earlier. I don't know if it might be an SEC Big Ten breakaway or a breakaway with the top three, if they might wait for something to happen and see what happens with the ACC. But, I mean, this is, honestly, I think I agree 100% with you. And even though I've talked about, I see the SEC and Big Ten possibly breaking away down the road, I just don't think it's good. I don't think it's good at all. I mean, the last thing we want is some kind of a pro-style league or something where all the top players are going to either an SEC and Big Ten school, and you turn in the rest of college football into Division II. And, you know, nothing against Division II football, but it's just not the same.
Well, when people like, and I often do this, I do this a lot on X, formerly known as Twitter. But when people say they want college football to be exactly like the professional leagues, now I believe the students, I think the only way out of this has just been my opinion. It's been my opinion since I started the channel, before I started the channel, that the students are going to have to get representation, protection, CBA, collective bargaining. They're going to have to become employees of the universities or conferences somehow tied with the university, however that looks like. But when people go, but let me ask a question to University of Texas, to Oklahoma. Let me ask this question to Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. Let me ask this question to the biggest, highest college football, the helmet schools.
Right.
Do you want it to be all professional? Do you want do you want a draft? Do you want a draft? A draft for drafting high school players? No, you don't. And that's why Greg Sankey, Tony Petiti, that's one of the reasons why they want to keep the educational ties to college football. Because the Buckeyes are not going to. You want these student athletes to be able to go to the school that they want to go to. A draft, they don't get that opportunity. So these schools don't want these students to become employees. They want these students to be tied to the school. Because the Buckeyes.
And speaking of that, Greg.
What?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of that, Greg, did you see Lane Kiffin's tweet about Ohio State and their $13 million congratulating them?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just exactly what you said. I mean, you can see the reasons why, because these schools, I mean, these big helmet schools have all the power, they have all the money, and like you said, I mean, I'm sure. Can you imagine like Minnesota and Arkansas in some kind of a, top tier college football league where you have the NFC with the Big Ten and the AFC or the Southern Football Conference with the SEC, and hey, our Hogs and Gophers would be drafted high.
Yeah. Hold on, Mrs. Razorback. I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
We have a very important question in the chat room. probably the most important question in the chat room for today. Joe Z said, my wife just yelled, so no mac and cheese? If there's no meat in there, mac and cheese is fine. Your question on pasta, I thought you meant, Joe, that, there's sausage in there, whatever. If there's no meat in there, the mac and cheese is a beautiful thing. You start throwing meat in there, and all the cheese does is act like a wet blanket over meat. Mac and cheese is fine. Spaghetti, put some cheese on that, is fine. But once you throw meat in there, it's not fine. Lasagna, meatless lasagna is so much better than lasagna and you throw sausage in it. Give me the sausage alone. Get the cheese away from my Italian sausage. If I want Italian sausage, I'm going to eat it like how it used to be eaten, not how the cheesification of America, where you just throw a bunch of cheese on it. I apologize, Jamie. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Oh, no problem. Hey, these are very important debates.
Yes,
sure.
It is. Yes, it is.
It should be part of the thing. And I love the new logo, by the way. My wife likes it too. She's sick today, but she came in for a second. And
good. I'm glad she liked it.
She makes a 7-cheese lasagna, so I'm sure you would love that one.
The lasagna is not out. Lasagna is in. Just don't put the sausage in there. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So it should be very interesting to see what, obviously we kind of see what's going on. I see your point. It's like, where is the line drawn? And how much, I guess like you said with Sankey and Patini, they know they have all the helmet schools, right? The power brands, all the money and everything. So at what point do they decide, like, obviously they're going to make threats to get what they want, right? Like they tell the NCAA, or they can tell everybody else, if we don't get what we want, we can just leave. Because they know they could technically leave, right? They know the money that's involved and everything. They could do it and make it work. So it's just going to be, everybody else seems to be kind of tied at their hands. But when it comes to conference realignment, one thing I'll say that's very interesting here, there's a couple of things I see. Obviously, the one big thing that you talked about is we found out with the lawsuits that the 2027 clause that ESPN has, right, where they can opt out of the ACC deal.
And they have to make that decision by February 28th, 2025.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's going to be such a big thing to watch going into next year, because if they do that, obviously they could look at this and say, why are we going to keep paying an ACC media deal for schools we don't want when we can move over, the top 4 or whatever we want over to the SEC and just pay for those schools and not pay anymore for what they might consider, not that they're garbage, but, just pay stuff that they don't want to pay for. That's a huge advantage right there, too, I think, for the SEC, on top of the fact that the SEC, and a lot of people might not know this, and they get a lot of criticism, and I'm one of them that does the criticism. They only play an 8-game conference schedule. And there's been talks about that, too, where, obviously they could help pay for schools by going to a 9-game conference schedule. So that's something that they've gotten away with. So it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, how all that plays out. But I'm curious to hear more about what you think. If we do see, and I know we're still another year away from that possibly happening, and we've got to see what happens with FSU. But if ESPN does that, if ESPN decides to opt out, where do you think it goes as far as those ACC schools? Does ESPN maybe just try to renegotiate with them?
I would think they would. Now, depending on who leaves, how many teams leaves,
right.
A lot of it depends on how much the ACC implodes. And then you got to, the ESPN has value and interested in the Big 12, so maybe they think, well, maybe it's just better for us if we just.
Oh, that's a great point, Greg.
Yeah,
they could send 4 over there to the Big 12 and 4 in the SEC, and they could be like, we don't really care what the other 6 or 7 of you do, and not even try to renegotiate anything.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's brilliant. So, yeah. Very interesting. Well, I hope everybody enjoys their weekend.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about these things. I know we're a long ways off on that, but it's something to think about, and they may already be thinking about that, the fact that, that would be their two premier leagues, that they would have the Big 12 and the SEC, and they could just move their top 8 schools that they want to keep in the ACC over to those two and say, forget about keep paying this contract or even trying to renegotiate a new contract. Because by the time the Big Ten's going to certainly take 2, you think, at least 1 with FSU. But if they take FSU and Miami, that leaves, obviously 8 schools. That's only going to leave at this point, 5? How many is it? 6, 7 schools left, something like that. So, yeah. Very interesting. Well, thanks, Greg. I hope you enjoy your cheese and to stay away from the meat.
Yeah.
We have a thing down here, we have a thing similar to White Castles here called Crystals, Greg.
Got it.
And they're a little different. I've had both of them, but I have to have a cheese crystal, man. I just have to have a cheese crystal.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Great call by Mrs. Razorback. John Teal, thank you so much for your super chat, for your continued generosity to our show. Thank you so much, John. But what about chili cheese fries or nachos? No, not with the meat in it. No. Cheese nachos is fine. Fries with cheese is fine. Fries with squirt lemon on your fries. Absolutely delicious. But but not with the meat. Not with the meat. Look, I'm going to give you guys another example. I'm going to give you my wife does not make my wife makes tacos, street tacos in Mexico City how you're supposed to make them. Now, I did say there was a couple exceptions when we started this conversation. There's a couple of them. My wife does use white Blanco Mexican cheese on a few items, but mainly you add it to your plate. Her tacos don't have cheese in them. It's not like American tacos. It's nothing like that. It's salsa. Salsa is what they use for the sauce, not cheese. It's salsa. Salsa on the meat. But I want to give an example of what I mean here. Another example.
Call from
JD.
JD, hold on. Can you hold on for just 1 second?
Sure.
I appreciate it. The worst thing that this country has ever done to a hot dog is when you go buy hot dogs at the store, you bring them home, and you find out they put that cheese in the middle of it. It's the dumbest thing. That's another example of the cheesification of America. Leave the hot dog alone. We put relish on it. We put onions on it. We put all types of things on a hot dog. You don't put cheese on a hot dog. You don't put cheese on a hot dog. But see, everybody in this chat, every single one of you have been victimized. Victimized by the great cheesification of America. Cheese is fine, but keep it away from the great meat that we create in this country. Keep it away from it, and you'll be a whole lot happier at dinner time. Mr. Seminole, JD, the floor is yours.
Hello, happy Saturday, sir.
You too, sir. How's it going?
It's going fine. If you ever had to rely upon me cooking for you, you would starve. There is cheese on everything. And, yes, sir.
Well, you're a victim. You're a victim.
Everything.
You're a victim.
Well,
you don't know you're a victim.
I live in the South, so we put cheese on just about everything.
It's Stockholm syndrome. You've been beaten over and over and over your head by the dairy industry, and you wake up with a smile on your face every day, not knowing that you're a victim, JD.
Hey, no. There's some things, I'm not a grill master in everything, but there's some things that my friends and family members tell me I'm a grill master in.
Got it.
One of the things, I've got a particular way that I make my burgers. Man, when I throw that slice of pepper jack on there after that.
What'd you say?
my grilled burgers.
You
My
put pepper
burgers. Oh, I put pepper jack cheese. Oh, I live off peppers. I mean, there's probably nothing that I eat that I cook that isn't spicy. I mean, I think in my past life I was Cajun or somewhere along those lines.
Peppers is
But,
fine. Look, peppers is that's my point. Peppers is
well,
fine. It's
pepper
delicious.
Pepper jack cheese. Is
Yeah,
what I'm
but
saying.
you don't need the cheese. That's my point.
But the cheese and the accent, because when you do the burgers right and you got some smoke flavor in there, because if I'm doing charcoal, I always got to throw some hickory or applewood in there, and it just even on my steaks, if I'm charcoal grilling them, you just got that wood smoke flavor, and then the accent of the peppers, and then the cheese brings something with it. Got to live a little, sir. Got to live a little. But anyway, I guess we'll just never agree on that.
Yeah.
But as far as FSU, I think they're going to still push. I think that's what you were insinuating. I was working while I was listening to your show. And I think you're insinuating that you think they'll still try for 2025. I think they will too. There gets to be to a point that if it goes to 2026, that means they've seen the lawsuit to fruition. They've seen it to the end probably.
Mm-hmm.
And because I don't think it's going to be a 4 or 5 year deal. I think it'll be 2 years if they go ahead and move forward. And people in FSU circles, they think they got a great case.
Yeah.
They think they got a really good case. And does the ACC? I don't think the ACC wants to get to discovery. I mean, that's been said so many times on this show. I don't think they want it. And here's another thing, and it was brought up on in the chat and War Chant. Did the ACC tell the new incoming members that the contract didn't go to 2036 before they signed the grant of rights? And did those members sign the grant of rights?
I don't know about at the time of signing the grant of rights. I do know that Clemson knew before Florida State presented that fact at the Board of Trustees meeting on December 22nd.
I'm talking about. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just saying that Clemson knew what Florida State was about to present. But I don't know. I don't know what they knew when they signed the extended grant of rights, if they knew that or not.
No, I'm talking about the 3 new members.
Oh,
that's
a great question.
Tim Hughes.
That is a great question.
Because technically, if they weren't told, that's fraud. If they were, and so there's just a lot of skeletons. The ACC is really nervous about this, and they know that they have to hold the line because the dam falls apart. But there are just so many holes. And, Big 12 Mafia, I listened to their show last night, and they had TJ on there, TJ Pittinger. Mm-hmm. And he's got some good ties in there. And he was throwing out something that caught my attention, that, if FSU did the settlement, they would shoot for a structured settlement, which would be a yearly payout. So my question is, even if you file or you do a structured settlement and the ACC falls apart within the next couple of years, so let's say the FSU is willing to agree to a higher settlement, knowing that the ACC is going to fall apart, does that structured settlement, you're not going to pay a settlement, your yearly settlement, to an entity that no longer exists, or at least doesn't exist in its former form, I guess, So I think there's, started doing the math, and you tell me if you think I've, got some merit here. If you add the difference in revenue that FSU would receive, let's say going to the Big Ten versus the ACC, the additional ad revenue they'll receive, and a potentially higher playoff portion, because we've talked about You talked about what the estimated payout per school is in the Power Four is going to be, and that the Power Two is going to want a higher piece of a larger piece of the pie than the other two in the Power Four.
Possibly, yes.
You're talking about a $60 to $75 million gulf a year anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get out 2 years early, the difference in money that you're going to receive pretty much pays most of your settlement anyway. You just start doing the math, and the math suggests no, they don't want to let this drag out to 2026, 2027. It's 2025.
Yeah, I'm gonna, I'm not a big believer on a structured settlement. I'm not a big believer on the ACC willing to take yearly payments from Florida State. They're going to want the whole enchilada right up front. They're going to want that money in their hands. I mean, even when they created, and I'm going to put up on the screen, even when they created the current ACC bylaws, now, everything's negotiable. So I could be end up right. I'm just telling you.
I agree with you, and I agree with what the ACC is going to want. My question is, would FSU agree to a higher buyout if it's in a structured form? And they're
so. I think
gambling
they're
that
get
the
it.
ACC will fall apart.
I think they want to get us the lowest number possible. I think they want to give it all to ACC, get the heck out, don't make yearly payments. And that's why they're talking with an equity firm. I'm not buying that part of it. Now I could end up being wrong, or I could end up being told something differently, and we'll take the L.
None of that.
Yep.
Yes, and none of that made any sense to me. And last night was the first time I'd heard anything about potentially a structured settlement. So I'm like, well, why would you do a structured settlement? And then I'm like, oh, okay, because if the ACC falls apart, you don't owe them anything after that point. You're not going to pay. But I have, and like you say, for everything else from private equity, I mean, you would assume they're going to strike the check and give it over and everything else. And that was the thing is, the only downside to this is if you strike a check for, say, $200 million and you give it to an entity that falls apart a year later, and you're like, well, man, okay. Mm-hmm. But I just have to believe there's going to be some fail safes in there for something like that. No. But real quick on the changing landscape, one of my first calls to you back over the summer, I talked about the change coming in college football and the push for the networks. The networks and now private equity is starting to get involved as well because they see the potential. College football has let's just say this. The networks will tell you and acknowledge that college football is about a $2 billion a year business. That's what the estimate was as of, the last couple of years, I think. They want it to be a 9, 10, 11, $12 billion a year business, if not more. And the push for the networks is the NFL owns their own product, and the networks are their broadcast partners. In the future model of college football, the networks are the owners. It's potentially a more profitable sport for them, even than the NFL. You follow me so far?
Yeah.
And so that's the reorganization and the chaos that we see. It is the networks. They're trying to herd everybody into these particular little, let's just say they're trying to herd everybody into the conferences so that they have more control over scheduling, because they want to have more control over what's going to happen. And you're seeing this. This used to happen over a 10 or 15 year period, and now it's happening what did you say, the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 at the most? A completely restructured college football system.
Yeah.
And And yeah, you know, I hate to say it, the only way the ACC exists is if the networks decide that it's going to. And if it's not in their best interest, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, forget about history, forget about whatever else. It's just, and to be honest with you, I don't really see the advantage once a couple of these teams find a way out. I mean, maybe it'll exist in name only. Maybe it'll be as some of y'all have talked about the East Coast Ivy League or kind of like an Ivy League type conference. But I don't know. I'm doing a lot of rambling here. I'm gonna let you talk. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's fine. No, yeah. When you say all these great changes 4, 5, 6 years from now, basically we always go back to the great gold rush of 2026. It's almost like it has to be done for 2026 because
I think so too.
Yeah, because there's so much money involved, so much new money involved. John Wilner's predicting 1.7 billion. How is that going to get sliced up? So we are. The next 6 months is going to be fascinating. It might take Florida State another 6 months after that. We shall see. But I think everybody wants to know how all this is going to look like when it comes to direct payment to the players, conference realignment, NIL. Is it in the school? What type of governing body? Get these lawsuits figured out. Everything by 2026. I don't know if that's even possible, but that's I don't know, man.
It will be possible at the high end, the highest end of CFB. I think. Well, I say that that whole North Carolina State thing. Is North Carolina eventually going to get away? Yes. And it goes back to what you and I talked about the other night. It's that how do you start the process of trying to sue to get out of the grant of rights or sue to get out of the ACC, and the NC, I'll just call them the NC State politicians, agree to it. That's where they're going to stonewall them in the beginning. Once the process starts, they're going to get out. It's just getting started. And that's the problem. But regardless, and other people have talked that eventually North Carolina's become available, whether it's with NC State or not. Mm-hmm. Eventually they're gonna be freed up, and I've heard two other places recently, and one not associated with you, saying the same things that you're saying as far as inside North Carolina. Well, I'll tell you exactly why. Jen and the Renegade Rundown the other night had a show, and they had Jason Staples on, and he does the Unconquered podcast.
Okay.
When the preseason comes and you want to know how FSU is looking, and you want some accurate predictions, you listen to his podcast, because Jason has it nailed, and he works in North Carolina. He's I think he's a professor in North Carolina.
Okay.
It happened to be, he talked about it. One of the lawyers that he is associated with and friends with, and he kind of runs ideas by him, happens to be one of the lawyers that filed the suit for the ACC. So in other words,
okay.
So he obviously said he couldn't get any information from him from that point forward.
Yeah.
But the things that Jason was saying was exactly what you're saying. So if anybody wants to know the validity of the things that you talk about on your show, man, everywhere there's sources that I hear that aren't associated with you are saying the exact same thing. That's one reason, like I said, you're one of my most trusted listens, I want real inside information. But anyway.
I appreciate it. On this particular, the North Carolina situation, and we started covering that months ago, right? Even to the point where people got sick and tired of me because we had to make sure everybody understood the lay of the land and why. I'm gonna say something though. Every basic national college football reporter, I know, how do I say this? This is a known situation. What we're reporting about North Carolina is a known situation among many. They're just not in the position to report it because they do stories they don't do this type of, they're waiting for the end result of what is the lay of the land here before they go report it. We feel a different space, in college football. We can talk about this. So we talk about it. But this is not the North Carolina situation where it's known. It's known out there. It's just some of us have the ability to talk about it in the space. And I don't have anybody have strings over my head except for there are things we can't talk about because we are, how do I say this? We trade bones with there's a way to do this stuff. And sometimes we get information we just can't say anything about because it's really, somebody's giving us a heads up, but it's not our, we know it's going to get reported on. We can't talk about it. That type of stuff. But this Carolina stuff is known. So it's not, we don't hold this information. We're not the only ones that know about it. I'll say that.
Well, the other thing is that he echoed what you were talking about. It was almost as though you were saying it as far as there is a heavy now SEC lean to UNC.
Yep.
It is a heavy lean.
Yeah.
So just a little more verification. Because like I said, he's a former player and he's still got real close ties to the university. But whenever he breaks down games or does preseason talent assessments, man, he is spot on every time. So that's my go-to. One of my go-tos. But anyway, yes, sir. Okay, sorry
all right, man.
to be so long-winded today. But I appreciate it and enjoy the show as always.
Appreciate it, JD, Mr. Seminole.
Right.
And of course, that SEC lean could change. And if it does, we'll talk about it here at Peek Around the Corner. We'll give you the peek around the corner. If and when it changes, John Teal, the Big 12 might go to 24 for ACC with Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, Washington State. Don't think the Big 12 is interested in any more content on the West Coast. So I don't see that happening. But if I end up being wrong, John, I'll take the big L here, Peek Around the Corner. Thank you, John, for once again, your generosity. Once again, thank you so much. Ryan Willie, super chat, all this Wisconsin hate. Artichokes on pizza. You might as well put anchovies on pizza. Give me a pepperoni and sausage, double cheese pizza. It isn't Wisconsin hate. It's the fat guy from Minnesota protecting the wonderful meats of this country. You don't have to slobber on a bunch of cheese on top of every single meat. Don't do it. Try for a week. Try for a month. Stay away from slapping cheese on the meat. Cheese is fine. Meat is great. Put the two together, and most of the time, you're not improving the taste of either one. That's my point. Thank you, Ryan Willie, the Evil Badger. Thank you once again for your incredible generosity to this channel. Thank you, sir, very much. Cheese hot dogs is nasty. Um, Holy smokes. What is that? Ryan Thomas, I'm not even going to say that comment out loud. Holy smokes. Expedition Greg, thank you for your super chat. Any Clemson updates? No, I do not have any. Don't have any. But if Clemson is going to pull the trigger, Expedition Greg, it's going to happen in the next couple weeks. And we were told it was going to happen. So on February 7th, February 8th, we're going to be starting the show, taking the big fat L if it doesn't happen. The people we've talked to do not believe that Clemson's going to pull the trigger within the week before they start the winter meetings, ACC winter meetings. So we're keeping an update. We're tracking it, Expedition Greg, but there is no updates. The moment we have an update, we will be coming on live. John Till, anchovies, mushrooms on pizzas, God's work. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Call from
Steve-O.
All right. Is that Steven?
Yes,
Thank
Steve-O,
you
yes.
for the phone call. Appreciate it.
I'm trying to get something clear here. If, say nothing happens to Florida State or anybody in the next year and a half, and ESPN decides somewhere, whatever the date is, in 25, if they're going to extend the other 9 years, and they say they don't, does that mean all 18 schools could get out of the league after the 26th season for $120 million?
I don't know. That's a great question. I do not know because technically, supposedly, well, you know what? I can't even go that far. If ESPN declines, and once that contract ends, at the end of that, whatever contract, let's just say January 1st, 2027. No? Yes.
That's July 1st, I think.
Yeah, July 1st, 2027. It would end. That contract would end. Let's just pretend it would end at that point. Then that means ACC will not have a contract with the media company. If ESPN, Steven, if ESPN on February 20th, 2025 says they're declining distribution rights. They're declining to distribute ACC content by the beginning of, let's say, July 1st, 2027. Then I think ACC, that means there probably was an ACC implosion. The ACC would start taking offers from media companies. My question, and I do not have the answer, I'm going to ask this question though, Stephen. Does the ACC conference at that point still hold each and every ACC school's media rights? They have ownership of them. Do they have ownership of them all the way to July 1st, 2027? I think the answer is yes. But if the ACC walked away, if they announced they walked away, I don't know why it would cost 120. It would cost less than 120 million, right?
Well, I thought I heard somewhere the 120 million is the exit fee.
But
with the league.
But that's
not the gore fee.
Yeah, but that's based. It isn't. Now I could be wrong, Stephen, but it isn't 120 million because it says it's 120 million in the bylaws. It's 120 million because they're saying 3 years of revenue, 3 years of media revenue is the exit fee. So they're saying 40 times 3. But
Okay,
if you don't
okay.
have 3 years left of revenue, if you only have 2 years left of revenue, then maybe the exit fee is only $80 million. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Now,
yep, go ahead.
now, if does the Gore dead if ESPN says no, or does the league have the option to go with Apple or Amazon or whoever?
Well, I see. I'm not sure, but the grant of rights I don't think is completely dead. If we're going through this scenario, if ESPN says they decline having distribution rights 2027 and beyond, the grant of rights with the ACC schools would still own them for at least until July 1st, 2027. You know, it isn't like it automatically, the ACC doesn't now own each school's rights. It's just going to be a lot cheaper to get out of it. And then if the ACC gets a deal with like Amazon, let's just say, whatever schools remain, ACC gets a streaming deal with Amazon. Then the schools at that time are going to have to decide, do we hand over our grant of rights to the ACC for 2027 and beyond for them to get this deal with Amazon, or do we look for another landing spot?
I guess what I'm trying to get toward is, it sounds like Florida State realistically would hope their first season out of the ACC would be July 1st, 26.
Yeah.
But if they waited, $40 million all 3 years, and if they just waited one more season, if the Gore no longer exists after 27, then they get out for nothing.
Sure. And that's one of the fascinating things to the story. Does the ACC actually want to wait 18 months to make a settlement with Florida State, knowing that ESPN can make an announcement that they're walking away? Like, ESPN, according to what I understand, could make the announcement tomorrow that they're walking away from the ACC for 2027 beyond. The deadline is February 28th, 2025. So the ACC has to balance all these interests. They have to say to themselves, man, I mean, if we wait too long and if ESPN makes an announcement, then Florida State's going to get out real cheap. Is that, in other words, Stephen, I don't know. The great question. I don't know how, but you're right, theoretically, if this deal comes after ESPN makes their announcement, or if it comes before, but then ESPN walks away, it could affect how much Florida State would have to pay. Those are great questions. I just don't have any answers.
I wonder when that Gore was originally signed, if streaming was even thought of at that point.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I mean,
yeah,
it might have been thought of, but it wasn't part of it.
Back, I don't know how many years it was now, 6, I was somewhere in there. If I was any of those schools, I wouldn't have wanted to agree for an extension if it was not on linear television at that point, because, nobody would have been seeing it at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking if possibly Florida State just waits the 3 years, they get off scot-free.
They could, but what if ESPN doesn't walk away from that deal? Then Florida State has wasted 3 years. They're behind the 8 ball. They're $100 million now behind revenue of Mississippi State. You know what I'm saying? It's both of them are gambling a bit, right? On a couple different levels.
But when I don't watch a lot of ACC Network, but ESPN Plus, they hardly have commercials. I mean, it's all promos.
Yeah.
So if the ACC Network is even close to as bad as the ESPN Plus, they can't be having much money coming in. So
yeah,
I would think ESPN would want to shut it down, but maybe JD or somebody else, maybe ACC's got plenty of commercials. I don't know.
Yeah, they're making money on the SEC network. They're doing okay with the ACC network. ESPN Plus is not a. I mean, they have a decent subscriber base, but they don't have a lot of ad money coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody could tell us their experience on ACC network as far as how, is it filled in by, gambling and beer commercials, or is it promos? So I appreciate you, Greg.
You got it. I appreciate the call. Great question. I just don't know the answer. Steven, this whole thing between Florida State and ACC is like 3D chess, and I can barely play checkers, man. So, we'll figure it out together.
But yeah, I'm just thinking. Florida State might be better off slowing things down rather than speeding them up.
Yeah.
So
you got it.
All right, maybe somebody else got to fill in. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Great call by Steven. The ACC network has done pretty good. No question about it. No question about it. Greg, what are your thoughts on Alex Grinch of Wisconsin? He's going to be the secondary coach at at Wisconsin. He was not a successful defensive coordinator. Maybe he does a great job as secondary, right? He's not going to be ahead of the recruiting at the defensive side of the ball for the Badgers. Maybe he does a great job. I don't know. We're going to find out. We are going to find out. I don't really have a big opinion either way on that. John Teal, I didn't quite get to you. Anchovies, mushrooms on pizza's God's work. Thank you for the super chat. I absolutely agree. The ACC network broadcasts gymnastics, wrestling, swimming meets, lots of stuff. Has a daily 3-hour show on all things ACC. What's most important for those networks, what's most important for those conference networks is live events. That is what brings in the ad money. That is, if you don't have enough live events, that's why when we read an article, we did an ESPN article, Pete Thamel, we've done these, John Wilner, people are predicting that the football is going to, quote, completely separate from all the other sports, whatever. I'm telling you, the Big Ten wants those other Olympic sports. They want what UCLA provides when it comes to softball, baseball, USC, Oregon, Washington. The SEC wants Oklahoma and Texas. They don't want to be just about football. They want to fill up their networks with these live events. The Longhorn Network was a complete failure when it comes to the University of Texas. Sure, they made some money. Some money came in. No question about it. But we're talking about, for the network itself, it was an albatross. They did not have enough live events to put on the Longhorn Network. People mocked the Longhorn Network because every time they flipped it on, it was just reruns of old games, football games, basketball games. It didn't have enough live events on it. Bundling up content, third tier, first and second tier, you get the most juice out of that content. To sell it as standalones. Anyways, we've seen enough evidence on this. The networks, just the last couple of years, like the Big Ten network, the women's volleyball live content is exploding, not just with ticket sales, but on the Big Ten network. The SEC baseball season, Flip on the SEC network. Look at what the message boards are talking about. Look at what it's all about. SEC baseball. They're not going to want to separate. Of course, the SEC is different because it's one region, but the Big Ten is not going to want to give up USC, UCLA, Oregon's, Washington sports. The Big 12 is not going to want to give up. They want to keep their 3-region conference, not just in football, but for all the other sports. Anyways, Peacock just lost $850 million. John Teal, I love my grilled onions burnt. So do I. Thank you, John, for the super chat. So do I, actually. Chris Hughes, it looks like Florida State had to sue in order to get ESPN not to extend the contract. If ESPN doesn't extend, then their media rights end in 2027. Was that Florida State's motivation? To give ESPN second thoughts on extending that to extend their ACC contract distribution rights? Great comment, Chris Hughes. Thank you for the super chat. It looks like Florida State had to sue in order to get ESPN not to extend the contract. Again, Olivia Dunn is a big deal. Yes, gymnastics. My daughter played college volleyball, had an offer with Wisconsin, but went a different route, Jeff Beaver. The original grant of rights was a direct attempt to increase revenue after Notre Dame joined the ACC. The ACC sold its Tier 3 rights to Raycom and now the CW for exposure, not revenue. ESPN simulcast the ACC schedule's release this past week. Yes, they did. ESPN covered it. ACC Network did a great job covering the schedule release. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, did 3 days of it. All that was good. I thought it was all good. Now that Vince is gone, let's rumble. Not me. I am not rumbling tonight. I am not rumbling tonight. I am not a WWE. You don't like... Look, I'm going to have to be in the minority with all you guys when it comes to meat on cheese and with the AEW versus WWE. Give me AEW every single day. WWE, thumbs down. Now I got everybody upset with me. I've got everybody upset with me once again. Look, we've got now we got breaking news right from yesterday. Sharon Moore is the new head coach in Michigan. We are waiting for an announcement today. We are waiting for an announcement today on, well, it could be today. It should be today. Who's going to be the offensive coordinator for the Iowa Hawkeyes in 2024? The world is waiting. The world is waiting. On bated breath, who's going to be the offensive coordinator under Kirk Ferentz?
Oh my God!
Who is it?
Oh my God!
Who is it? AMAC, you're killing me. You're absolutely killing me. 4-star offensive tackle Carter Lowe has just committed to the Buckeyes. He chose the Buckeyes over Bama, the Bulldogs, the Volunteers, and the Wolverines. Still looking for nope, we still don't have an answer. Still do not have an answer on the Iowa Hawkeyes offensive coordinator. I was hoping that they'd make the announcement during the show. It's not going to be Paul Christ. It's not going to be Paul Christ. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. And make sure after you subscribe to the channel that you have your notifications on, because we could come on live at any time. Anytime. We come on in the morning, we come in the afternoon, we come in the early evening, we come on late at night, covering all breaking news in college football. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, have your notifications on, and smash the like button if you liked our content. If you did not like our content, hit the thumbs down button. Let us know in the chat room or on X at Flug Empire. You see my account at the bottom of the screen. Flug Empire, or in the chat room, let us know how we can better serve you, the college football fans. So, smash the like button or smash that thumbs down button. Either way, smash, smash, smash. I want to thank you all for joining us here in a live show, Peek Around the Corner. We're going to be signing off. We've been on the air for a little bit over 2 hours. I do apologize for the technical difficulties at the start of the show. We've had some issues the last couple of days. I believe we've ironed them out. We've got a new logo. I'm very happy with it. Finally, our first logo in 17 months. You're going to be finding that on our merchandise. Go to our merchandise store. When you have a chance, there's a link provided in the description box. Go to our those mugs. Keep selling and selling and selling. Cloak and Dagger PATC official mug. The PATC trucker hats. We're gonna be putting our logo on those hats. So the logo is gonna change. The picture on that trucker hat is gonna change. So go to our store, and of course, if you want to become an early Peak member for early Cloak and Dagger information, go hit the join button on our YouTube channel. Again, there's a link provided. We appreciate all your support. We're planning on going live tomorrow, Sunday, January 28th. We may even have to go live tonight. There could be some breaking stories, so we're going to be keeping our head on a swivel. So again, subscribe to our channel and make sure you have your notifications turned on, and follow us at Flug Empire on X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow us because lots of times we give everybody a little bit of a heads up when we're coming on live, emergency live shows, emergency episodes. So, from all of us to all of you, until next time, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.